Hi there. Some SEC schools are rolling in recruits, and some are struggling. Time to get the squad together.
You're talking ball with the SEC squad, sponsored by Game Time. From Alabama to Tennessee, from Georgia to Oklahoma, from Auburn to Texas, it's the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network bringing you scoops, breakdowns, and the most comprehensive preview of the upcoming SEC weekend. It's the SEC squad, and we have a seat for you. Hurt feelings and thin skin are prohibited. Squad up. You're part of the SEC squad.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into the SEC squad. Sit back, grab your favorite beverage, and join us as we get you ready for another week talking all things SEC. In today's episode brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. The Auburn Collective might need that advice. Guys, we're going to get into some football talk and some quarterback rankings. But first, we have got to start with recruiting. Let's welcome in our panel. We've got Brad Kellner, host of Locked On Longhorns. We've got Corey Burton, host of Locked On Vandy. We got Clint Shamblin, Locked On Bulldogs. Chris Marler, Locked On Gamecocks. John Miller, Locked On Mizzou. Stephen Willis, Locked On Ole Miss. Zach Blackerby, Locked On Auburn. I'm Chris Gordy, Locked On SEC. And guys,
and Clint.
Yeah, sorry, Clint doesn't have his last name on the screen.
He's Shakira.
There are some SEC schools right now, speaking of Clint, that are red hot on the recruiting trail. Schools like Georgia and Texas A&M and Alabama are racking up recruits. And then there are schools like Mizzou and South Carolina that are slow to get going. And then there's Auburn. I'm happy Zach Blackerby is here with us this week.
Man, I almost didn't come tonight.
Zach, what's going on?
Like every recruit.
I don't know, guys. It's super frustrating because like the easy narrative is you got to win. You got to win. And that would be fine if Auburn was losing to Georgia and Alabama, but they're losing commits to FSU, who's obviously coming off of a 2-win season. They just had a really talented receiver, Denarius Gray, flip to Kentucky. Once again, this is a football player, not a basketball player. And it's, there's been other guys that they lost out on a lineman to Nebraska. Steven used it a show on J.C. Anderson. Is that his last name? The tight end. So like Auburn's been in the top 3 for all these guys, but they're not closing for sure, and they're not holding on to the guys that they have. So is it just the winning and losing thing? I don't think so. I think it's deeper than that, but I don't know what the answer is.
Well, Hugh's trying to get his handicap down a spot, right?
I mean, he's playing a lot, supposedly. Oh my goodness, man, Gordy, you came ready to go.
I mean, that is not
to go for this.
That's AI, but that is not very far from reality.
That looks like the cover of PGA Tour 2026. I love it.
For those listening, we got a graphic up. It's the new EA Sports Auburn golf game with Hugh Freeze.
Oh, I thought it was Droopy Dog. My mistake.
Dude, they really captured how dead behind the eyes he's become over the last couple of years. That is perfect. That's where we draw the line. That's where we draw the line.
Let's take a look at. We're recording this on Tuesday. Let's take a look at what the ranking classes look like right now. Again, this could change by the time you're listening or watching this, but Georgia's sitting up there top, A&M, Alabama, Tennessee, Texas, LSU, Florida, Arkansas. They're all in the top 21. And there's Auburn at 89th with 6 commits. This is off the heels of Auburn and Hugh Freeze signing back-to-back top 10 classes. I just look at this and say, what a disaster this is right now.
Yeah, and I mean, as we discussed, I wish Eric Kane of Locked On Vols was here, but I mean, there's some traction of Auburn's top guy remaining, Hezekiah Harris. He's an edge defender, in-state player. Tennessee feels good about where they're standing with him too. So I mean, it's not great. It's certainly not great, and it's very frustrating because it's such a big 180, and it's not even a 180 from year to year. I mean, you look at what Auburn did in the transfer portal. I mean, not that long ago with Eric Singleton and Xavier Chaplin and Mason Murphy. I mean, they got some of the top transfer guys at each of their respective positions that they were needing. So then the question is, like, did they spend all their money on the portal? And then other guys are, because that seems to be the report that you keep hearing is like, I mean, that was definitely one that was pretty more public with Shadarius Tootle, Clint. The offer that Georgia made was significantly better, was the phrasing that I heard. Same with Denarius Gray to going to Kentucky, that Kentucky's offer was better. And that's a problem. Like if it truly comes down to like NIL resources, and this is kind of the narrative that's come around Auburn recruiting, that's a problem. And it's totally different from everything we've seen under Hugh Freeze up to this point.
Yeah, how big is that Baylor game, by the way? If that Baylor game
let's please talk about the Baylor game. Yeah, it's big, no doubt. No doubt about it.
Yeah, with what is going on, if Hugh Freeze and Auburn loses that game, it could be a nuclear mushroom cloud.
The panic that would go around the Auburn fan base, it would be crazy. It would be
crazy. One saving grace. Like, he hasn't been winning on the football field, but the one saving grace every Auburn fan's been like is like, well, we got top 10 recruiting class.
Future. It's the future. And like Auburn's roster, I think is pretty solid right now. But
let me hold on, Zach. Let me just do you a favor. Since your birthday was yesterday, at the time we're recording this, sure. I'm going to be the voice of reason here. Also, I would like to apologize to Hugh Freeze for the comment about his eyes. If you're listening, which I know you are, a big fan of the show. Anyway, Zach, the first thing I thought of was it screams like, are we out of money? Like is Auburn out of money because of how much like they put into the last 3 cycles of the transfer portal and also the high school recruiting, the kids they brought in, which is fine. But like also the players you're losing, it sucks. But this is probably the deepest roster and team that Auburn's had in the last 10 years, right? Like the best offensive line they've had probably in the 15. You have like a top 3 receiver room. The defense is going to be good. Like I think you're set for this year. So panicking in June, it feels kind of like a little bit like a fool's errand to do, even though all fans do it. They should have a really, really good chance to be the best team they've had in at least since 2019 this year on the field, which will obviously help all the recruiting.
Yeah, but one of the things that they're also paying out is coaching. Like how many coaches have come, they're paying them. Like if you start looking through what Auburn has paid out, that is not on the recruiting trail. That is not on this new July. Now we're entered, $20.5 million that you go ahead and get out there to the football team. Auburn's been paying out to run out coaches for some time. It has to infuriate up. That's the kind of culture that sure you can try to get it back on the field this year. And I do think Auburn's going to be improved. I do. I'm with you, Marlon. But at the same time, you look at the longevity of the inside guts of the program, and this is a symptom of a reeking, rotting culture in there that has to change. Like I don't know who it is. I don't think it's all huge, but it's somebody
Jimmy
in
Rain.
there.
I think that's a little overrated too. But I mean, when you look at I agree, Clint. I agree. But as far as the deals, I don't know about the culture, but as far as those individual deals that you're still having to pay, sure. But like, are you not going to pay Gene Chizik after winning a national championship?
You do.
I mean, Gus Malzahn, I mean, let's think about the context of that. There was all that buzz about him leaving for Arkansas, and he had just beaten back-to-back #1 teams in the span of 3 weeks. No other team has ever done that when they beat Georgia and beat Alabama, and they kind of dominated those games. Like, we've never seen that in this era of college football. Like, you're not going to pay him? Like, you're going to say that's not
they
worth
did win the SEC.
Now, the issue is like Brian Hart, like the Brian Harsin hire was atrocious, and it was awful, and it's still hurting us. The potato famine is a real thing.
How long is that going to be the case, though? I mean, Hugh Freeze is 11-14 in the last 2 years. He's 1-8 against ranked teams.
Yeah.
The scary part for Auburn is that they should be improved no matter what this year, but they could get out of September 2-3 and still have Georgia and Bama like on the horizon, which is a nightmare.
Listen, in 2014 and 2015, Hugh Freeze beat Alabama. Ole Miss was riding high. 2016, with a lot of those same players coming back, with Chad Kelly coming back, that team went 5-7 and lost to Vanderbilt.
A lot of people lose to Vanderbilt.
Yeah, culture problems happen
out,
on Hugh Freeze teams with regularity. Unfortunately, Zach.
I'll just say thank God for Auburn, because otherwise Missouri would be dead last in those recruiting rankings. And I'll just say this from a Missouri perspective, and I think this is relevant for Auburn and just about everybody in the country. What I'm really looking at is the 2026 portal rankings, because in 25, Missouri is still one of the best portal teams, according to most outlets, including 24/7. I believe a top 10 incoming portal class for 2025. it's just going to be interesting to see the allocation of resources going forward. In other words, how much do you put towards the portal? How much do you put towards high school? Is this an allocation of resource thing? I don't know that we're going to totally know maybe until the next portal cycle. If Missouri is significantly down from what they were the last couple cycles, then I am going to get really nervous.
I also think there's a staunch difference in staffs that aren't concerned about this new NIL clearinghouse and how strict they're going to be, and coaching staffs that are like, well, if you follow it to the letter of the T, like we can't offer them that amount of money. That was some of the discussion with one of the guys. There's been so many that we lost recently. I forget which one, but where that was kind of part of it. We're just talking to folks in the program. It's like, I'm not sure that deal's even legal right now. And so I don't know. And I mean, to me, I think it's a big bet just to assume that this new group is going to say what they're going to do. But I do think that's part of this too, is like, are these deals that are on the table for these kids going to be 100% legal?
Hugh has always been a real stickler for the rules. So that's a good point.
I don't think a lot of this is Hugh doing it though. I think it's their GM.
Well, just Auburn in general. Yeah.
Let's pause it right there, guys, because I don't want to spend this whole show talking about Auburn when they're dead last in recruiting. We got some actual competitive teams to talk about. Yeah, when we return here on the squad show, we do have a big thing happen this week. We'll talk about that next.
Let's talk about basketball.
Squad show. Hey, back to the squad in just a second, but have you ever wished managing your money felt easier? With our friends at Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings, planning a big purchase, whatever it is, Monarch Money is going to put you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over all your finances. Monarch Money, they are more than just a budgeting app. They're a complete financial command center. They're going to let you track all your accounts, all your investments, all your spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, start building that wealth. Of course, when you use Monarch Money, you're going to see just how much you're spending on stuff like streaming services or food delivery service, all that kind of stuff. Help you cut out all the excess spending and take control of your finances today with Monarch Money. Use our code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com. Get 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. monarchmoney.com. Roll along here, the squad show. Appreciate you guys for joining us, and we open it back up to our panel. Guys, we did have a significant thing happen this week on July 1st. We officially started revenue sharing. It's in full effect now on college campuses and schools being able to pay student athletes. Just curious in you guys' minds, what is going to be the future of how all this plays out, from NIL enforcement and crackdown to, just the budgeting your revenue share and how you're going to be able to pay kids directly from the school? Because I saw a story this week from Ross Dellinger that said Open Doors released their annual NIL report and said this past June, NIL collectives paid athletes 800% more than they did last summer. So a lot of regulation, a lot of tracking on what these deals are and if they're fulfilling these deals. And then we got schools like Florida State that are signing kids to binding agreements saying we're going to enforce everything here.
I'm curious to see how it's all going to shake out at Vanderbilt. I know with NIL, there's a lot of opportunities to get legit deals with different companies and things. So that's going to play out a certain way. The rev sharing, I haven't really dove fully into it yet, but I am curious how they're going to go between basketball and baseball, since baseball is such a highly thought of sport on our campus.
The hilarious thing,
really
go ahead,
Steven. No, you got it.
Hey, the funny thing is we have Walker Jones on there. It's $20.5 million. And everybody's like, how are the schools going to raise this money? I was at Ole Miss when the athletic budget was $30 million, and now it's $140 million. And I was only there 15 years ago. They don't have to raise that money. They just means you have to have a third jacuzzi instead of a fourth jacuzzi in the training room. That is what that means. So it does bother me that the fans are probably going to be the ones that end up getting screwed by all of this. And with the NIL collectives and everybody talking about how strict they're going to be on that and the guidelines on that will come down to the first time they get sued and have to cave, because they are absolutely going to do that. I talked to Walker Jones and he said that nothing is really going to change except for players. Now the era of amateurism is over.
That's right. The two things I'll be very curious about. The first time, for whatever reason, this clearinghouse aspect says this NIL payment that school has made to this student athlete doesn't count. We're actually overriding and say it's not going to clear. When that first one hits, that's going to be the litmus test, right? And for whatever reason they decide, because again, to this day, the NCAA is a useless organization that has yet to do anything meaningful in the last 5 years. And so when they decide to put their nose into this, well, yeah, I was being generous. You're right. I'm sorry. I should have been accurate much longer than that. That's going to be the first litmus test. The second litmus test to me is going to be when certain athletes are reported, like all the big hitters in the SEC, for only a certain couple thousand, because they're getting lucrative deals as they're being liaisoned over to other companies and other people to say, we're not going to have to report this. We're going to be a middleman for all these other things. And we're going to use our 20.5 on the book, so to speak. It just makes more loopholes for people to work around. But that first suit or first one that says, no, we're denying this NIL, that's going to be the big one.
Yeah, that feels like the multi-billion-dollar question, right? Does this clearinghouse actually do anything? Do they try to make an example of a big school? Do they go after a Texas? Do they go after a Georgia? Do they go after a Bama and go after them? Or are they just like, hey, little San Diego State? Or it feels like SMU always gets punished by the NCAA. Hey, SMU, we're coming after you for something. Like, are they actually going to go after the big dogs fairly, or are they going to kind of do what the NCAA did and just pick and choose random schools to set an example? That's, I think, something we're all curious to see.
I promise they won't go after Bama.
Definitely Mizzou, for sure.
Don't even start here, Zach. Don't even start with that.
Just a prediction.
I mean, I feel like there's a bunch of people, like a bunch of different teams, like that they are not going to go after, like Ohio State, Texas. The scary part here is that like those schools that are already rich are only going to get like infinitely richer. But I mean, I'm with you. Like the idea that Deloitte is somehow going to end up being a consultant on this, and they said in their initial, I guess, proceedings, when they were going over this, 70 to 90% of the overall contracts they saw from last year would not be approved by the new guidelines because they were just clearly pay for play. 70 to 90%.
Well, those are the ones through the collectives. The actual NIL deals, they said like 90% of those were fine. So what becomes here is they want real enforcement on NIL. If you agreed to do a commercial promoting a product, make sure you're promoting the damn product and you're doing what was guaranteed. That's what the whole thing was when they were telling Johnny Manziel at the height of his fame, no, you can't do an autograph signing. You can't do anything. It's like, let the dude make what fair market value is. But here's the crazy part, guys. Define fair market value. If someone's willing to pay you $8 billion for your services, isn't that fair market? That's if that person's willing to pay you this money, that's fair market.
Right.
Gordy, I was told that
this has lawsuits written all over it. And then what happens?
Yeah.
I saw
go ahead, Gordy. Well, I was just gonna say, like in baseball, I think it's gotten crazy in MLB, like these ridiculous 10 and 12-year deals. They're stupid. They don't make sense. But the commissioner doesn't step in and say, hey, that's not a fair market deal. Like if a billionaire with stupid money wants to be stupid with their money, let them be stupid. Like if they want to pay a 17-year-old who's never played a down in college football $1 million, that's your bad investment.
Or maybe it's a great investment. Who's to say? That's kind of the whole point. What is the market? Exactly. That's why I think ultimately, this is just my opinion at this moment, I think this clearinghouse is not going to have a whole lot of teeth because, as has been alluded to right here, there's a lot of legal possibilities here. I don't see it. That's just me. Yeah.
How do you define fair market? Like
I think, it's going to be a race between all of the legal departments of these various athletic departments to see who can figure out the best way, the best loopholes, the most lucrative ones, the ones that can get you the most victories. Quite simply.
But we have seen this in sports. This is arbitration in Major League Baseball.
Right.
A team says, I'm going to pay this or I deserve this. And they say, well, no, you got to go to arbitration. And we determine what that fair market value is. That's what we're going to determine. Where does this clearinghouse land?
Major League Baseball has a players union. That's the difference.
They do. And this is what I'm saying is, we're going to determine. That's why like the first or second or third one comes out. They're defining how to do it. Because if the first school they come up against is maybe the Ohio State or the Texas or the Georgia, and they just say, screw you, we're going to keep doing it and like come after us, like do whatever you can and we'll fight it out in court, but we're going to disregard you. Okay, that lands on one end of the spectrum. The NCAA tries to throw away whatever they can, which is not much. then we say, okay, now it's sliding to another way. And does it inevitably become a players union? Like the Northwestern kid from 10 years ago wanted when he came out and started this whole thing.
Well, they've also like become like deduced from like being like the police of the situation and monitoring everything to basically hall monitors with no real power and are just kind of still etched up on this like little, pedestal that they think that they are still governing the entire existence of the sport. I think you're right, Clint. The first thing that's going to happen is they're going to tell someone, hey, that guy's not eligible because he got paid too much money for blah, blah, blah. And Ohio State or Texas or Bama is going to look at him and be like, we don't care. Like, we do not take you seriously. You're not important anymore. Well, let Sankey go filibuster about it, and we're going to play this weekend.
I think it's going to be interesting to see who the court of public opinion, which side it comes down on, as far as we're talking about potential legal battles here, essentially between the players and the universities, the ADs. Is the public going to side with the players? That's been kind of the trend in pro sports, but this is really different. We're talking about really overhauling an entire sport here, more or less, and how it's worked. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. That's all I'm saying.
That's a fascinating question because, I mean, you talk to a lot of the like college football truthers and traditionalists, which is a big chunk of the fan base.
Of course. Big chunk of our fan base.
I think it might be a situation where the public opinion, I mean, I think it's going to be split for sure, but I think you're going to see a lot of people saying like, yes, please fix the sport that I love because this isn't working.
No doubt.
Well, the one thing I think that's not going to happen, I've talked to some people and know, some people said, just make them all employees. There are so many problems going down that road if you have to pay them salaries. And if you're a state school, guess what? They're suddenly a state employee. You now have to have holidays off, federal holidays. Like, there's a bad, dangerous road to go down with that.
Can I also say, teams like Notre Dame, this won't fly for football players to be employed by the University of Notre Dame. There's only certain coaches that go to Notre Dame because you have a character clause that is in the school that when you become an employee, you must sign. And certain coaches said, I'm not going there. I'm sorry. I can't agree to it. You think that now what happens? Now do you make an exception for those employees instead of the other employees of the school? It opens up. This is a madhouse that nobody thought of before NCAA decided not to care about anything and let it get to this point and get Todd Gurley for getting $400 for an autograph. Like, this is the paved road that we end here. It's craziness that we're going towards.
Also, you imagine Brian Kelly
value for a Todd Gurley autograph at that time. Would you say, Clint?
What'd you say?
Fair market value for a Todd Gurley autograph at that time. What would you say?
At that time? Oh my gosh. I think that could have sold for an autographed jersey. Todd Gurley probably could have sold in the hotel lobby for $1,500 easy.
Yeah.
Like,
so is that fair market value for Deloitte? I don't know. What would they say?
That's right.
And he could have charged $100 a head. Like, line him up and crank him out.
Good for him.
Right, this has been a very serious conversation. When we come back, let's have a little bit of fun. The NCAA video game college football is a week from coming out. They put out their quarterback rankings. We'll take a look at where the SEC quarterbacks fell in that category coming up next. SEC squad talking more ball. And fellas, if you missed it, we're a little over a week away from the next iteration of the college football playoff video game coming out. And by the way, Zach, good news, the basketball game is going to come out in 2028, so you'll be able to play with Auburn in that game.
Thank goodness.
But the quarterback rankings came out. I'm curious what you guys think of these rankings. Coming in as the three best quarterbacks in the game, they have Cade Klubnik, Garrett Nussmeier, Drew Aller at 92 overall. Rest of the SEC, Lenore Sellers coming in at number 5 at a 91. John Mateer, also a 91 overall. Arch Manning, a 90. Guys started 2 games in college, and then DJ Lagway at 90. So overall thoughts on where some of the SEC guys rank in this list?
I like Lenore Sellers being up there. I'll say that. I'm glad he got some respect put on his name. And I will say former SEC guy Carson Beck, probably the most overrated guy there at 91 to me.
Ooh, I would disagree. Dude, he is going to put up ridiculous numbers when he goes to...
Is he healthy?
Not mentally or emotionally, but he's going to be fine. And like he's going from a situation. He's going from a situation at Georgia where he had to play like half his schedule against top 20 opponents, top 10, top 20 defenses, and now he's going to go to a Miami team that's going to play in the ACC. And I think last year Cam Ward, I think they played 2 ranked opponents all year, and 8 or 7 or 8 of their 12 opponents in the regular season were outside of the top 50 in pass defense. Like, he is going to have a monster season
if he throws anybody.
Yeah, Nico Iamaleava being ahead of Diego Pavia is kind of interesting, at least.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, he won the head-to-head matchup, but
Tennessee beat Vandy. Tennessee was supposed to beat Vandy, but Nico is not a better quarterback than Diego Pavia.
No, I totally agree with you. I was just about to say that.
Also, that number 13 there, making $8 million, but being the 13th best quarterback in the country is kind of like what we were just talking about, just kind of a bizarre thing.
Good job, Duke.
Luke Altmaier got ran off from Ole Miss. Yeah, Luke Altmaier got ran off from Ole Miss for Jackson Dart at number 14. I think Luke's going to have a really good season for Illinois.
I think so as well. He's going to have a great season.
I think John Mateer and 91 overall. I think that might be a little high, but he's probably going to be very fun to play with in the game because he's so mobile. So that should be
I'm glad we have Brad Kellner here. Go ahead, Corey.
I was going to say very mobile in a quarterback-friendly system, too. That's going to be fun to play with.
I want to ask Brad this because, Brad, this has been a big topic of discussion the last few weeks is what is Arch? He's getting so much hype, so much love. Everybody's loving on him, but do we think it's a little over the top? Where are we with Arch?
Well, it depends on who you ask, right? I mean, for Steve Spurrier, it's it's nothing. But for some guys, he's getting incredibly overhyped. I feel like 90's accurate. I don't really know where to put him when it comes to these ratings. I will say this, Gordy, you said he only started 2 games. In those 2 starts, and really just for the entirety of the season, Arch Manning had the same number of total touchdowns as DJ Lagway did last year. And Lagway started 5 more games than Florida did. So that's not like, oh, Lagway's bad. I think Lagway's really good. That just shows you what Arch Manning was able to do in a really small sample size. So the people who say, oh, he hasn't done anything, he hasn't played at all, like when he was on the field, he put up good numbers, but of course he hasn't played a whole lot. So he's one of the toughest. He's one of the toughest people to judge in college football. Right?
Okay, you just hit my nerve. You just hit my nerve because this is lunacy. Arch Manning has played nobody in those games. Of those games, he played everybody outside of like a top 90 defense. 80% of his stats came against nobodies in college football. And when he played somebodies, he was something like 3-9. They didn't score a touchdown on the drives. He comes in against Georgia on a down year defensively. Look, Arch Manning could be good. I have no idea if he will or not. And I'm not saying that. He could be great. What I'm saying is everybody ready, Paul Feinbaum ready to crown him the prince of college football, cracks me up because no one ever applies the same metrics we're applying to Arch Manning to anyone else. Yeah. Sellers has more pure athleticism, pure talent, and statistical analysis. He should be 95. If Arch is 90, Lenora Sellers should be 96, 97, something like that. I am confused. I'm not, Brad. I'm not blaming you. You just.
I am, Brad. I definitely am.
No, you're not. You're a Texas guy.
Well, look, like these EA Sports is trying to sell video games, right? Paul Feinbaum is trying to get clicks. He's trying to get impressions. What's going to move the needle? It's talking about Arch Manning. So I think the fact that his last name is Manning has totally clouded everything that people do because they want to take advantage.
Full circle.
He's a Kardashian. He's a Kardashian of college football.
Yeah,
it's kind of interesting.
He got a BBL.
Yeah, well, Kim's put up big numbers. They put up big numbers as a family, so maybe Arch is going to do the same thing. I don't know.
I just want to ask a question of Gordy. You're telling me, Gordy, we started this entire episode with Auburn hate. We then went to NIL, and we're finishing with EA Sports quarterback. And we're not talking about the greatest run of recruiting we have seen in a dang long time by Kirby Smart.
I wanted to give you a chance.
This man is out here in the era of NIL when people said Kirby Smart is dead because he can't. Now he has to compete with all the big boys in college football, and he is pulling recruits from everywhere. Hitting the month of June is now thus called the year of our Lord Kirby Smart. Like the whole month is now just Kirby's time.
A month is a year?
It's not a year. It's
a month. Is the year. Okay.
Look, I couldn't make the saying work with just a month.
It's the Shambling calendar.
Thank you.
And then you just fumbled it right there.
I know. I did. You're right.
Georgia with 20 more commits than Auburn, by the way.
They had 14 in June alone. I tell you, the thing about what Kirby's doing now, too, because he's always done this, when it's like what he's built, obviously, at Georgia, like it's 5 stars and blue chip, top 100 players everywhere. It's also taking 3 stars, turning them into first-round draft picks. The scary part of what he's doing now some of it feels almost like it's personal. Like PJ Dean yesterday was 30 minutes before his commitment was like a lock to South Carolina. And it almost just feels like, you know what? I don't really like Beamer. You remember that outburst I had on the field against him a couple years ago? Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and take this because I want it. And he is on a roll, man. 14 commits in the month of June. And
you're looking at guys like Morgan, Bell, Cooper. I know they might be committed. The wide receiver, running back, plus Tyler Atkinson. 2 more 5 stars potential, 4 more 4 stars potential to round out this class and jump all the way up. I'm telling you.
How many players are they going to get?
We've lost count. It's Kirby's world, and he doesn't care. He has, it's personal to him. You're exactly right. I do truly think that he just got sick and tired of people saying, and going back to the NIL conversation, when you make people a level playing field with a guy like Kirby Smart, you've made people, instead of fight at distance, say you have to get in the ring. You limit the scope of where they can go. He's going to win most of those battles. With a level playing field isn't the level when you got skill and talent. I can't believe this heater is on. I called this the most important recruiting class in Kirby Smart's era, even year 1 and 2. I think this is it. This is a trajectory year for Georgia, from dominating to everybody talking a step back, everybody doubting them, everybody saying Gunnar Stockton can't play. Look at
why is the most important? Yeah,
everybody said they were only going to win 6 games this year. Are we doing that, Clint?
We are doing that this year because they're actually saying that. This year is true. Last year was not. Because I think it's because Kirby Smart, last year's culture totally changed with Carson Beck. We lose offensive coordinator, go to Bobo. Everybody wants to blame Bobo, and Kirby Smart can't coach. All he can do is get Jimmy and Joe's. That's all he can do. Back to those 3-star, 4 stars. Now what he's saying is, in the era of NIL, where everybody's paying for players, and I'm telling people, he came out 2 weeks before this run and said freshmen should not be making more than seniors at Georgia. He said that statement publicly in an interview, and now he's getting all these freshmen, paying them some amount of money, dropping bags on certain dudes. That's true. But also saying you're not going to make more than my seniors. They're buying into his system and his way. This is important because it resets the culture that was lost last year that I think accounted to a huge down year for Georgia standards.
It's cool that he finally had like a breakthrough and like finally figured it out on the recruiting trail for sure.
Yeah, seriously, Georgia needed this.
I will say, like,
victory arc. Yeah,
this is such an incredible come from behind story, just a rags to riches for sure.
It's like a Disney movie.
You of all people, if anybody else said that, I would have laughed. But you of all people need to shut your hole.
I will tell you that, like, him going 11-3. The thing that I was most surprised about with Georgia last year is nobody seemed to talk about the schedule, having 6 of their first 13 games against top 20 opponents.
How many of these do you have?
It's just Twitter. 5 of those were away from home, right? And then he goes into the postseason without a starting quarterback. They got to go play a really good Notre Dame team. And oh, by the way, the day of the actual like what was it, the quarterfinal or semifinal in the Sugar Bowl? There's a domestic terrorist attack on New Orleans. They have to postpone the game for a day. Then this is not trying to make light of the situation, but on the way to the game, his dad has a horrible accident and dies during the game. Like, there were so many things that had to go against Georgia's way for them to finally lose in that spot. And, like, it was odd to me that nobody was making the excuse. And I think it's a kind of a testament to how big the program has become and how good they've become, because no one's going to make an excuse for them since they are at the mountaintop.
Well, it could be, we'd be real too. I mean, Saban not around anymore has really opened the door for Kirby to just run roughshod on recruiting.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, still lose to DeBoer, but yeah. Sorry, Clint.
Well, we'll end today's show with a picture of Hugh playing golf again. We know that's going well. So
I want Marler right now on SEC Squad Show. I want you to put your money where your mouth is right now, Marler.
Oh, you think I have
what
money?
Are you putting on the game?
You think I have? I have predicted Georgia to beat and win that game every year for the last 5 years in a row.
Emotional hedging. It's called emotional hedging. I know what you're doing.
That's a fun way of saying that I don't know what I'm talking about. I feel like they should have won most of those games. You're a more talented team. You're playing against Jalen Milroe. You're talking about all these people that they were talking so poorly about Kirby Smart. The amount of Georgia fans and media that were, the way they spoke about Nick Saban and the fall off. My God, I tell you what. Tell me how many players tear an ACL before that game that are starting receivers, and I'll tell you how much I'll put on the game. Because that's the only time Kirby's beaten Bama in the last, I think, 9 years. How'd that go for you, Clint?
Wasn't Brock Bowers and Lad McConkey? They were hurt in the SEC title game.
Was that a bet? Is any money exchanging?
There's no bet yet. What's the bet?
He's not making one.
All right, Zach, I need to borrow $100. I need to borrow $100, Zach. Clint, it's $100. 4-1 odds. Zach is not pleased.
Zach's like, I'm not doing that. Yeah. On a side note, Vandy beat out Coach Prime for a recruit today, so that's cool.
Let's extend the show.
I want to thank John Miller because I think it's really cool that he wore a Janai Broom jersey to this recording.
Did he really?
Yeah, it's a throwback too. It's from 72 and the year he was born.
That's
never mind.
Sorry.
Well,
one of our
as we close
fathers.
this out, hopefully you guys are listening to this or watching this, getting ready for the 4th of July. And Zach Blackerby wore his 4th of July America shirt. Brad Kellner, in honor of July 4th, wore a Domino's shirt, so that's good. Nothing better than Domino's pizza in a pool party.
Gordy, why don't we go around? All of us say our least favorite country just to kick off July 4th. You know what I mean? I'll go last.
You start.
I tell you what, I don't love Greenland. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, for one. Also, Peru's kind of confusing. It's just like the entire west coast of South America. What are we doing there? Or is that Argentina? I don't know.
It's not Peru.
It's not Peru, right? Yeah.
It's Chile.
So I'm still stuck on the. It's not Chile. Chile was in TLC. There's a lot of things I think geographically speaking, we have a lot to fix. We don't need 2 Dakotas.
You are fascinating. You just exist, Marler.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Like you as a human just exist.
And Cal and Stanford should not be allowed to charge for school if you are in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Stanford and Cal should absolutely not be able to do that.
But back to the Dakotas. We don't need 2 Dakotas.
By the way, I was just in California and I was on Cal's campus and I could see the Atlantic or the Pacific Ocean from Cal's campus, and they're in the ACC.
It's in the bay. Yeah, it's a good point.
Pretty crazy. All right, I'm getting the red light. We got to wrap up. Remember to follow and subscribe to your favorite SEC show, whether that's Zach Blackerby with Locked On Auburn to hear about how they suck at recruiting, or if you want to hear Clint Chamblin brag about the Bulldogs and have the best recruiting class in the SEC. You could do that as well. Or, if you want to just listen to Chris Marler gush about the Gamecocks, or Corey Burton talk about Vandy beating Colorado in recruiting, or Brad Kellner gushing over Archmania. It's all there for you. And, of course, Stephen Willis. Check out his new set with Locked On Ole Miss. All of these shows you can find wherever you find your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day.
Wow, I hated all of that. I hated all of that.
Yeah, you hate fun? What just happened?